All right, welcome back to the School of Impact podcast. Today I'm joined by a special guest and a new friend of mine. His name is Daniel Gomez, and he is the author of The Makings of a Millionaire Mind. And today we're going to be diving into some of the mindsets that any entrepreneur needs to have if they want to be able to not just survive in this game of business, but actually thrive and live an abundant lifestyle. So I hope you're excited for this. Daniel, man, it's great to have you on the show.
Hey, Jason, thank you for having me. I'll tell you what, I'm excited. I had a chance to share the stage with you here. This amazing, beautiful mansion, and God is good, man.
Yeah, we're going to dive into it in just a second, but we have been here at this mega mansion in Orlando. It's absolutely incredible. Both of us just got done speaking yesterday at this event. It's incredible. And so with that being said, let's go to dive in, man. Tell me, or tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
Man, Daniel Gomez is just a person who loves people, right? And when my brand, Daniel Gomez Inspires, came out, it was really just to inspire people. But on my own journey of growing and learning, then my whole mindset, my whole cognitive thinking changed. And I realized that I didn't love myself so much. I realized I caused a lot of pain to my family. So who I am now today is a person who helps people see their value, because nothing hurts me more than 90% of entrepreneurs undervalue themselves. Because since they undervalue themselves, they undercharge what they should charge.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because they carry, like for me, for my own experiences, I carried around the shame. I carried around the guilt and the regret as a husband, as a father, as a leader. And we don't forgive ourselves, man. And we just carry this baggage, right? Just imagine carrying an 80-pound sack of potatoes. You work out.
Yeah.
Imagine carrying an 80-pound sack of potatoes all day, every day, for a month, for a year. It wears you out.
Yeah.
And then what happens is, since it wears us out, we start coping in the wrong areas. We start coping with alcohol. We start coping with food. We start coping with drugs. And me, I was coping with, I used to drink a lot of beer back in the day when I was younger. And it's not something that I'm proud of, but that was just my escape route.
Yeah.
So I'm here to help entrepreneurs and people in general just know that, man, love yourself more, because I had to learn how to love myself. Because if you don't love yourself, you're never going to develop the millionaire mind.
That's right. And I often hear, like, a lot of entrepreneurs, and I definitely have been in this same boat, where they say business feels heavy. Things feel heavy right now. And is that what you're referring to? Is they have all of this baggage, all of this stuff on them, to where as soon as they kind of release that, it's like, man, this feels so lighter now. It feels so much lighter.
Well, the thing is this, right? When you have this baggage, what happens a lot of times, we see a person like Jason, and instead of being inspired by you, right? And man, I want to connect with Jason. I want to learn from him. He can take me where I want to go. Instead of being inspired by Jason, what happens is we get envious, we get jealous, right? Then we get resentful because it's the own crap we haven't even dealt with.
Yeah.
So instead of celebrating you, we're jealous of you. And nothing is worse than being jealous or envious of someone else, because resentment is going to keep you stuck in life, and it's definitely going to keep you stuck as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Well, tell me, man, what's your why? Like, what's the thing that essentially led you to doing what you're doing today?
Well, in 2017, I thought I had it figured out. See, I didn't have any awareness, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I had money in the bank. Our house was paid off. Had the Rolexes, had the cars, had everything. The thing is, though, there was something in me that was missing. And I couldn't see it. And this knocking came on our door. And my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. And when she was diagnosed with breast cancer, my wife had a decision to make. I didn't make it because it wasn't my body. And my wife decided to have a double mastectomy. And man, it brought me to my knees, right? It really brought me to my knees. And I didn't realize through this journey that my wife went through, I started my own journey. I resigned from my position to take care of my wife. I used to run multi-million-dollar dealerships, and she got depressed, so I had to make a decision. Was I going to hire somebody to take care of her, or was I going to take care of her myself?
Yeah.
And I manned up, right? I manned up, and I left with the intentions of going back. And just my family, I think for me, just really healing my family was important. I think so many times on our way of entrepreneurship, trying to get to the next level, we sacrifice our relationship with God, and we sacrifice our family. And I can tell you that those are two mistakes that I made in business for many years, because I still had this void. And when I learned, right, that my wife had breast cancer, we lived on this journey, like, I had to reprioritize my life. It was always, right? It was always business, success, then Daniel, right? Then the selfish Daniel, and then my family, and then God around that area. But when I put God first, my wife, family, then business, we've been growing ever since 2020 during COVID.
That's beautiful, man. And I know a lot of people can probably resonate with that. I know it certainly can, where we start to build our business or our career around our life versus building our life, or sorry, the opposite. We start to build our life around our career, around our business, versus building our business to make it fit into our life, you know?
Well, one thing that I'll tell you is I coach a lot of successful business owners that are next level, and one thing that I coach them on, because I've gone on this path myself, right? We work so hard to get the bigger house, the bigger fame, the title, right? Entitlement sets in as a business owner or leader of an organization. But then at what cost?
Yeah.
I've met so many men, and I'm saying men because that's kind of at that high level, a lot of multimillionaires that I coach, they're divorced, they're separated, they don't have a relationship with their kids. And for what? Because, you got the business, but now they're lonely.
Yeah.
And they regret. So there is that. I want you to understand this, ladies and gentlemen. You can find that balance. You can find it. And the thing is, this is one thing that I've really done to change the way we do business is I bring my wife on a lot of these opportunities that I'm speaking all over the world.
Yep. My
wife comes with me, so she experiences this with me. And don't be scared to involve your family in what you do. And maybe they don't want to do what you do, but it involves them somehow. There's always a way to involve your family or your wife or your spouse or somebody.
Yes. Yeah, that's beautiful. And so tell me, I had the pleasure of hearing you speak yesterday, and something I found that was very insightful and very impactful was you mentioned the languages that we speak to ourselves. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so in our book, The Makings of a Millionaire Mind, we did a presentation yesterday called the millionaire language.
Yeah.
And so many times the millionaire language is what really gets you to the next level, because when you're starting off as an entrepreneur, you don't really know the language of business.
Yep.
You have the language of an employee, and that language is good to start off with. But then to get to those higher levels of business, you got to start developing the millionaire language.
Yeah.
But the bad thing is that most of the time for ourselves, we talk negative to ourselves. We belittle ourselves, and going back to what I said earlier, we undervalue ourselves. So we say things like, "Man, I'm not smart enough. I can't do this," or "I can't afford to go to this event." You cannot afford not to do it, right? You can't afford not to do it. And then what happens is, as you come into rooms like where we're at here in this mega mansion with this event that we were at with BLN, is the languages are different. So just know as you're rising higher, you have to have a different dialogue, a different language, because if people don't see the language that they need to hear in you, they're not going to resonate with you.
100%.
Because you're not speaking your customer's language, or you're not speaking people's language that want to affiliate with you. So the whole thing is you have to broaden your language and speak the language of your customers, speak the language of your people you want to collaborate with, and speak positive to yourself. And it's much more than just a positive go-lucky, but really, right? Like, what are the words you're saying to yourself on a daily basis?
Yes.
What are you, what, this is the thing, right? You want to find out who a person is?
Yeah.
You want to find out what their real language is? Put them under stress.
Yeah. 100%.
Put them on, right? Like we were here sitting up, the thing was, the remote wasn't working, the door was broken, like all these things went out, but no one cussed, no one got frustrated. We just, okay, how do we fix it?
Yeah, it's the different demeanor.
Yeah.
You know?
And as a millionaire, right, when you have the millionaire's language, you understand that problem is going to help you develop that language to overcome, to get you to the next level.
Yeah.
So you got to change that language that you're speaking on a daily basis, saying, I can't afford that house, I can't afford that car, I can't afford to buy hire that new employee. And when you start changing that dialogue, you're like, man, right? And like you said yesterday, what spoke to me, something that really spoke to me, right? I am in high demand. Mm-hmm. There's opportunity everywhere, but if we don't see the opportunity, we're never going to get it.
Exactly right. Yeah, I love that, because and especially the language we speak to ourselves, like I was talking to JR before the event, and I told him that like I still at times, even though I've spoke at a lot of events and I've done this for a long time and I have a lot of success to prove like what I'm speaking, I still sometimes get self-sabotage. But as I get, or imposter syndrome rather, but as I get imposter syndrome, I catch it, and I have to change the language immediately. Be like, no, like you can't, you deserve to be here. You can do this. Like you have the actual factual evidence, and so it's like that automatic switch to change it because a lot of times it'll get into our minds, right? And then we start to believe this belief, right? The thoughts that are happening, we believe it, and then it stops us from taking the opportunities or from getting out of our comfort zone, right? So I think that's amazing.
Yeah, well, the thing is this, right? You got to develop the language of I belong in the room.
Yeah.
I belong with the elite.
Yes.
Think about this. I want you to think about this, ladies and gentlemen, is when you change the language to when you realize that why is the Mona Lisa so expensive, Jason? Because there's only one Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
It's rare, right?
Yep.
Well, you're rare. There's only one of you. There's
right.
only one Jason. And when you realize that you're the Mona Lisa of your own life and you're unique, then you realize, like, man, I bring value. Like, your language starts to change, and you say, I belong with the elite. I belong in those rooms. I belong in the spotlight, and not in a negative spotlight, but sometimes we dim our light.
Yeah.
Because
100%
of other people's opinions. Forget other people's opinions. Like, forget that. Don't listen to what they say, because they ain't doing anything.
Yeah, that's right. Well, question for you: as you've been scaling your biz, what have been some of the challenges that have popped up for you, and how have there been any in recent times that have maybe popped up that surprised you, that you weren't prepared for, and how did you deal with them?
The big one is this: is success makes you complacent.
Yeah.
Success, when you get satisfied, you get a little bit lazy.
Yes.
And I'm just being totally honest. And the hunger that one had when you first start, right? You don't know what you're doing, but you're hungry, and you do anything, and you have that grit, and that grit pushes you to the next level. But then sometimes now you have more money in your bank account than you've ever had, and then that grit kind of goes away.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't need to make sales calls today. I don't need to make follow-up, or whatever, right? And the biggest self-sabotage that we do is procrastination.
Yes.
So if you're procrastinating, that's the hugest form of self-sabotage, ladies and gentlemen, because the thing is this, is we don't rise to our level of skill set, knowledge, right? All of us here yesterday, it was almost at the max. It was up close to 50 people in here on the first couple of days. But what happens is we get all this knowledge.
Yep.
But then we don't rise to that level of knowledge. We fall to the level of business that we deserve.
Yeah.
So if you don't believe you deserve it, if you don't believe you're worthy of it, you're never going to receive that next level of success.
Yep. I call it the good enough illusion, to where I think all of us fall into it, to where, and this will happen at all different levels, right? So, if somebody hits the first $10,000 month, or somebody hits their first they hit 30,000 or 100,000, it happens at all levels, to where we're like, okay, we're good. And then we get complacent. But what happens with things that are complacent?
They go backwards.
Because it's growth and evolution has to happen. So that is big. And so what have you been doing to, obviously I know because you're here, but what have you been doing to overcome that complacency?
I think I challenged myself to invest more in myself.
Okay.
One thing that I had to realize, right? There comes a point where you get off the dollar amount.
Yeah.
And you go to percentages. And what do I mean by that? So for every dollar you make, you need to reinvest 10% in yourself.
Yeah, I love that.
So my thinking was, when I was new, I was like, I was investing $500, $1,000 in myself a month to say, right? And it's like, it's good, but okay. But when you jump to these higher $50,000, $80,000, $100,000 months, well, you got to invest $5,000, $10,000 in yourself on a consistent basis, because you gotta you're sowing seeds into your future self.
Yeah.
So I had to really be intentional, and the word intentional, I use it a lot in my book, because sometimes when you wake up with an intentional morning routine, with an intentional day, then the results show up. So I had to start being intentional on investing 10% back in myself. And I can honestly tell you, I wasn't doing it. So now that I'm putting more money into myself, I'm like, I have to be there.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
It makes 100%. And I like that you have an actual system to it, to where there's 10% versus just random. So I think a lot of people, especially in the earlier stages, investing can be scary, and because you don't know, like, am I going to fail? Is there any uncertainty? Like, what's going to happen? Yeah. But I like you have a system in place to where, like, I'm going to put 10% in, and I think that's a really great idea. Like for me, I've never had, it's just been random. Like I literally invest in myself very sporadically. I'm a very sporadic buyer. What would you call that? Expressive?
Expressive, yeah.
Yeah.
But I got a mind hack, right? I got a millionaire tip for y'all guys here. So check it out, right? I want you to start saying this. Everything I spend comes back to me times 10.
Yeah.
Everything I spend comes back to me times 10.
I love that.
And when you start embodying that identity, that affirmation, and you change that language, right? Because the thing is, sometimes it's hard to let go. It's easy to let go of $1 or $100. But when it becomes not 1,000 but 10,000, it's a little bit harder to let go. But when you take on that mindset that, you know what, this is going to come back to me 10 times, and you really embody and believe it.
Yep.
And you release it, it comes back to you.
100%.
So remember that, ladies and gentlemen. Write that down. Everything I spend comes back to me times 10.
I love that. Write that down. And so what's the bigger picture for you? What are you trying to accomplish over the long term?
Man, well, I'm a big visionary. So for the longest time, I had this big old board in the back of my studio, and it said #1 motivational speaker in the world. And my old publisher said, don't share that with anybody, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of too bold, right? But I'm like, why? So when I hired one of my other coaches, because I believe everybody needs a coach.
Yeah.
And he goes, Daniel, share that message. So now I get on podcasts, and I'm like, my big vision for Daniel Gomez Inspires is I am the #1 motivational speaker in the world.
Yeah.
That's my goal. Why? Because I want to really inspire people to know that you too, right? So many people don't believe they can become a millionaire, that they can't make a difference to that level. And we found, right, one of the speakers yesterday had an alarming stat. Ladies and gentlemen, over 93% of entrepreneurs, you guys, never hit 50,000 in revenue a year. When I heard that stat, it alarmed me. So if I can help people do that, break that, double that, triple that, maybe you're saying, I don't want to be a millionaire. Well, good, but how about $250,000 of revenue? Would that change your life? Would that help some homeless or needy people?
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. So if you can go back to when you were first getting started in your business, we'll say you were under that first 6 figures. If you can go back and give a piece of advice to your old self to be able to get to that first 6 figures online, or maybe multiple 6 figures, what would it be?
Be kind to yourself.
Be kind to yourself.
And I say that not in a light way, but be kind to yourself. This is what happens. When you're not kind to yourself, you beat yourself up and you make your own path harder.
Yeah.
And you're your worst enemy. So why is that important? Because then you stop doing the things you need to do.
Yeah.
Instead of doing the things you need to do.
Yes, I love that. Yep. That's definitely something that I think most entrepreneurs aren't great at without intention, is like we'll tend to beat ourselves up or get into self-flagellation. And so I think that's like powerful advice for sure. Because
when we've all heard it, right? Like, man, I'm like, maybe you say this, I'm so stupid. I can't believe I did that. Like, that's the language you got to change. The millionaire language is, okay, I made a mistake. Let me learn from this. How can I? And if you really want to develop the millionaire language, start asking yourself questions.
Yeah.
The quality of your life is going to be determined by the quality of the questions you ask yourself. Yeah. This one's even deeper. The quality of your business is going to be the questions you ask yourself about your own business.
Yes. Yep. I love that. So, all right. So as we wrap up here, I got a couple questions for you. So first, where can people go to learn more about you, what you're about, your book, all of that stuff?
Well, text the word millionaire. That's the word millionaire to 210-942-5059. That's 210-942-5059. And get our book. It's on Amazon. Or go to our website, themakingsofamillionairemind.com. That's themakingsofamillionairemind.com. And reach out to us, right? Get our program. We want to help you. And follow me on all social media platforms. I'm Daniel Gomez Inspires is my brand. We're on Instagram and Facebook. And
we'll link it up too.
Yeah. And what I want to do for your audience is I'm going to put a link in there. I'm going to give your audience a complimentary discovery session of 30 minutes. And if I can help them through some little block they have, I want to help you because Jason gave so much to me this weekend. I just want to pour back to your community.
Yeah, we appreciate that. And let me ask you one last thing. So if you had one last message that you can leave on this world, right, what would it be?
You matter more than you realize. You too can become a millionaire. Stop undervaluing yourself.
Love it. All right, y'all. So As we always like to end this episode, remember that your message matters now more than it ever has before. There are people that are depressed, they're stressed, they are eating too much, drinking too much, they're living life well below their potential, and you have a message inside of you that contains a passion, an enthusiasm, and it's a beacon of light to help shine on the darkness around you. So never be afraid to speak that message. As always, be seen, be heard, and be impactful.